This is our wing night. I like to use a Food Saver Cryovac machine. They are worth their weight in gold, but you don't have to get fancy like that if you don't want to. I'll show you how to do it with and without one. This is our chicken breast. Whenever you're using one of these food savers, or if this is going into the freezer and you're going to use Ziploc bags, I always recommend you do it nice and flat. That lets it both freeze faster. You can stack them up and kind of imagine a bookshelf of you, if you will. You can get more flat pieces together in your freezer instead of irregular shaped pieces. It also allows it to thaw faster because of our increased surface area. If you got to speed thaw this, you can drop it in water and this will thaw quicker. And if you're going to just slow thaw it in your refrigerator, the extra surface area will let that do safely. This is all the rest of the trim. I've got this all mixed together. This is about 1.5 pounds. It's a great portion for say 3 to 4 people. You can do this for a soup. You can do this for a stir fry. And then this right here, we had the little bit of heart was the only organ we found in our chicken we broke down the first time. This is what your organs will look like. I like to, for my pup, I take in just a little bit of salt water. I just bring it to a boil just enough to where these are cooked. And now I've got these highly nutrient dense organs. Instead of just throwing these in the trash, I like to take these and chop them up fine. I'll get a little bit in my dog's dog bowl with her dry dog food, and she absolutely loves it. So it's a great utilization of how to use every part of the animal without having to get into the, fried chicken livers pursuit. Not everybody enjoys that. I do, but in my house, this is typically what we do with the organs just to further utilize all that. We'll set those aside for now. And then these are our frozen portions. I want to show you a couple tricks of how to do this safely and things to think about when you're going down this road. This is the Food Saver machine. There's probably 100 different models on the market. They all basically work the same way. It's just how many bells and whistles you want to put on there. This is a little juice catch tray. This is the part that's critical. If you don't wash this in between uses, you get a little chicken juice in there, you're inviting salmonella and you can really hurt yourself. So do make sure, this is where cleanliness is highly important with these machines. The last thing you want to do is not clean this properly, store some food, and then when you break that out, make yourself sick from it. So be conscious and aware of how well you use your machine, read the instructions, learn to use which parts are critical. But these are the little bags. You can buy them individually made bags, or you can buy the roll. This is an example of the roll bag. It is basically open on this end, open on that end. The first step you're going to do is first seal the bag on one end. So you'll have a sealing function right here. That's what you use to just make the bag on one end. And then we cut the bag to the appropriate size. Of course my scissors aren't. There we go. You're going to take one end. This is the sealing tape part right here. You want to make sure you have no food right here. There's nothing on this. You just want to make sure that's sitting on it. Close it up. This one got a workout last deer season, so it's not operating at 100%. I got to hold my latch down now because I sort of wore this one out. But so first we're going to seal the bag. This will turn off when it's sealed. All right, and so what it did, and I didn't do this very good, but you can see right here, this is the line you're looking for that you know that you've created the seal. We'll do this one over. Don't be afraid when you're learning to use one of these, you will have to do this more than once. We'll seal that one up good for this point. And then the next big trick to this is when you're putting the food in the bag, you want to keep from getting food on what I like to call the collar, because we're gonna turn it into a turtleneck basically. We're gonna take this bag We're going to roll it down. And here's where we're going to put the food. It also gives us the ability to stick our fingers under here and kind of hold it open. Get somewhere to grab onto. But then what it does is by doing this, we're keeping these surfaces here clean for sealing the next part. So, for example, the chicken breast. Well, I got one hand clean, one hand for the protein. We're going in here. We're going to lay those out flat. Take the time to stop and wash your hands in between. This is how you get the cross-contamination if you don't take these steps. Another way to do this, if you make this a family affair, you can hand it off to somebody who's going to be doing the sealing. But definitely make sure you're washing your hands so that you're not taking that raw chicken and now touching your controls, touching the outside of the bag. But now I roll that back up. Now this surface is devoid of any food. And what we're going to do is we're going to put it back in here. This time we're going to tuck it into the little green tray. That little green tray is going to catch any juices that might get sucked out when we start the vacuum. Close this guy up. We're going to hold it. Just position the food in there, make sure it's not too overlapping or bulging. We're going to hit the vacuum and seal. Now it's in the sealing part. It goes through the cycle. When the lights go off, it's ready to go. And now you've got a perfectly good seal. You're going to inspect it, make sure you have no little bits of chicken or food in there. This is the last chance you have to shape it. I can kind of move that chicken breast in there to get my ideal flat thing. And now the important part, we did all this work, we're going to throw it in the freezer. I always recommend you label the things. So on some of these brands of these plastic bags, they'll have these little white spots where you can put that on there. Before this bag gets really, really cold and condensation gets on here and gets wet, you want to label that with a Sharpie permanent marker. I think I have one. Here we go. Sharpie on there works good. Another trick too that we like to use sometimes is painter's tape. You just put a little painter's tape on there. Painter's tape, no matter how cold or wet this may be, I always put the date. We're the 20th today. And I'm going to put chicken breast, BRST. Now I know what it is and what date it is. Obviously, if you got a bunch in there, you want to utilize what's been in there oldest. You know, if somebody's coming behind you, they're going to know what that product is, etc., etc. So that's a great way to store things. Now, if we want to go low tech, my low tech version of this, the good old Ziploc bag. Freezer bags cost more for a reason. It means that's basically because at the temperature of your freezer, the plastic stays flexible enough to be handled a couple times. I really like these zipper ones because they're way easier to seal. Again, we're going to roll it over and form that collar. So there's nothing none of the food is getting on there. Another trick you can also do is if you have a small round container, you can put this down in it, roll this over, and that container will hold this up and allow you to put things in there without utilizing a second person. So again, I got one hand clean. We're going to take these trim pieces, and this is going to be used at a later date, so to say. Just clean those all up. And we're going to recreate the vacuum seal, but we're going to go old school. Once again, wash your hands in between those steps. I'm sure somebody at this juncture is thinking, man, chicken's got salmonella on it. I should wear gloves. Yeah, if I was going to process, 100 pounds of chicken, gloves have their place. But one of the things about your hands, your hands are clean when they feel clean. So let's not utilize more plastics and things than we need to. Using your hands as you can feel things and textures. I don't I advocate for people using their hands more and less latex, nitrile, plastic, what have you. You know, I can feel that my hands are clean. When they get dirty and I'm wearing gloves, you can't always feel that. So that's one of the disadvantages of gloves that a lot of people kind of need to wrap their heads around. You can't put on rubber gloves or some nitrile gloves and now you're magic. You can touch everything and things are food safe. You need to still consciously wash your hands, wash your gloved hands. But this is a child's straw. I stole this from my daughter this morning. She said I could not take the purple one, so we have the orange one today. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to close this most of the way. I'm going to take this down in here. I'm just going to pinch, put it in here, come down to the corner. And the key to this little trick is putting your hand over here, so when I get as much of the air out, I'm just going to pull this out and slide it closed as fast as possible. I'm not going to get as much air out as the cryovac, but I'm going to get a really good close. You do want to kind of pay attention so you don't get a mouthful of chicken juice, and you don't want to cough into it, obviously. But and there we go. We've pulled as much air out as possible. You can take and move this flat. This is a Ziploc branded bag. It's got a nice white place right here. We can do the date on it right here. And I'm just going to call this trim. Okay? And now this can go in the freezer. A lot of times I like to, if I have plenty of space in my freezer, to put these out on a pan. And then, should for whatever reason these are leaking, the pan will catch that. It won't leak down onto other frozen foods. I can put this right on top where the blower part is, and we get lots of cold air going over there. They freeze in a single layer. Same thing for wing night. I think I got some small ones. Again, the big trick for food safety and so you get a good seal is the collar. This is one that's got the traditional style sealer parts. We're going to take these 4 pieces, and you figure a dozen wings, that's 3 whole chickens. So if everybody in your family is going to eat a dozen wings, that's that long and that many whole chickens before you get to wing night. You can also just take and put these and roast these off. If you're not a fan of chicken wings, you can roast these off with the rest of the bones and turn this into help make your stock delicious as well. And once again, we just put this down in one corner. I'm going to seal it all the way over to there. And then I'm just pinching right there and we're good to go. Smash it flat so it freezes better. Here's the part where you could label, and that's wing night. The rest of the trim, let's clean up our work area a little bit. Everything we got here to break this down into the further parts. These are the bones that we would roast off. This is the carcass right here. And then all these other little parts, this is pretty much, you know, you don't necessarily want to put animal fat, proteins into compost, but if you were doing that style of compost, you could. I don't recommend you do. It kind of messes up your chemistry going on in most compost piles. But this is something that you can cook a little bit in an oven. You can take these and feed them raw, depending on what kind of animal you may or may not have. It's also not bad to just throw this in the trash. But this is pretty much your waste and byproduct. This is why your boneless, skinless chicken breast costs more than the whole chicken, is because the grocery store is still absorbing the cost of this. Here's the other parts that are going to go into our stock. We would take and roast all of this off until it was golden brown like we saw earlier. 400 degree oven, about 45 minutes to an hour. Once things are golden brown, it doesn't hurt in the middle of the cooking to flip this guy over so you get some good color on both sides. And that's basically what we do.